Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are taking a look at the new Transformers Studio Series number 81, Wheeljack from Transformers Bumblebee. Like most of his wave mates, this toy represents Wheeljack's appearance as seen in the intro scene at the beginning of the Bumblebee movie, and as such has a live-action aesthetic with a G1 twist. So, if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Wheeljack's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions, at some point we'll take a look at his backdrop, and of course we'll see Wheeljack in both his vehicle and robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Wheeljack comes in your standard Deluxe class packaging for Studio Series. You get a nice render of the character right here on the front, you get his name, his number, all your logos and branding, and then you can see Wheeljack here in this window. If we look on the side, you can see a close-up shot of his face with his number and all that stuff again. And then a more zoomed out shot where you can see more of his legs, part of his foot there. I wish you could get like some sort of like poster art or something of like the full uninterrupted renders. That'd be nice. Then you see Wheeljack's renders for both his vehicle and robot modes. He takes 31 steps to transform, which is kind of insane for a Deluxe class toy. So it looks like he's going to have a very, very involved transformation. Hopefully, involved doesn't translate to frustrating. Hopefully everything, lines up the way it should, everything kind of folds away nice and neatly. We'll see. He comes with the Seibertron Falls backdrop, like all of the figures based on characters from that intro scene of Bumblebee. And then he has some flavor text here that says, Wheeljack and the Autobots are overwhelmed by the Decepticon attack and must escape Seibertron if they hope to survive. So, kind of a differently worded spin on Ratchet's flavor text, which is good. I'm glad they didn't just copy it wholesale and just swap, their names around. They actually at least gave them each their own write-up. I don't know why, I was just kind of worried they were going to do that. So yeah, there's the packaging. Shows you everything you need to know about this toy. So let's go ahead and open it up. Alright, here's Wheeljack's instructions. So you can see his name, logo, his number, render in the middle. And then here, we just get a little how-to for having him wield his weapon or store it on his back. So that seems to be a big priority with these three, B-movie deluxes, is having them have like a dedicated storage for their rifles. And something that actually looks, natural, like it should go there. And then we get our transformation from robot to vehicle. And like I said, it takes 31 steps. But, having tested it out myself, I can tell you it's not very frustrating at all. Everything lines up quite well, so as long as you follow the steps in the right order, you shouldn't have any kind of issue. You can see it's got the weapon storage on top, and finished product. So, as long as you follow these and pay attention to the steps, this should really help you out. Okay, now we get to see the vehicle mode in hand, and personally I think it looks great. You can see the influence of his Earth mode here. This does somewhat vaguely resemble a race car, and it's got all the striping and everything you'd expect, but then it also has a lot of Seibertronian flair to it, which I think is really nice. It makes him recognizable, but he doesn't just look like a regular G1 Wheeljack either. It's far too stylized to look like some sort of Earth-based race car. And really, very strongly gives me, Activision War for Seibertron video game vibes. So something very similar to how I felt about Ratchet, where we never got toys of those characters in those forms, but this is pretty close to that. So even if you don't like your live action stuff, you may want to buy this as a stand-in for your, War for Seibertron, Fall of Seibertron game series Wheeljack. Because the alt mode really just has all that flavoring, and we will see that the robot mode is very similar. Now, with any, car or wheeled vehicle type alt mode, the question is always, how well does this thing roll? And in his case, quite well. There's no dragging issues, which I thought there would be because of this piece right here, but nope, it stays out of the way. He rolls just fine. The wheels are interesting because they're done in a smoky translucent plastic, same as the windshield here. And then they have white paint over them. And look, no pegs sticking through. Look at that. Look at that. That's amazing. I really don't get why they don't always do this, right? So these are done where there is a peg, but the peg is, part of the wheel and it's going inward into the body. I don't know why it's so hard for them to do this all the time instead of, the other way around where you just have these obnoxious little plastic pegs that just stick right through the middle of your rims. I don't know. There might be a, engineering reason for it, or maybe it's just cheaper. Who knows? But I am happy that his wheels at least look nice. And, they have the little holes in them that, kind of work with the pegs, but it just looks like stylings. Very cool looking. You can see he's got tons of stripe detail and all that to evoke his Generation 1 design. Uses quite a bit of clear plastic, which on the one hand is a little worrying because, it's fragile. But it does look really nice because it's used for, the headlights here, for this cockpit area. Looks quite good overall. Now, the weapon is stored on the back right here. You can obviously take it off. And this actually brings me to, a question, like something that kind of puzzles me. So you see this little panel right here that's folded back. Well, in the robot mode, it's like this. And to me, that looks, more put together and complete than having it folded back like this. But per the instructions and, pictures, it's apparently supposed to be like that. Maybe just to cover up this, little divot here with the gray area. But honestly, I think that looks better. And the rifle still fits on there. It hovers just above this panel, just shy of really touching it. So, if you want to, it's your toy, you can display it like this. But I am curious why they decided that, this is better than that. I'm really not sure. That makes it look more complete to me. So, it's up to you. If you want to change it, feel free to. Okay, here's a comparison shot with the most recent G1 Wheeljacks. Representing his Seibertronian form, you have the Netflix version of that mold. And then representing his Earth form, you have the Earthrise version. Now, this toy right here, I always found to be just the most lackluster attempt at a Seibertronian mode for any of the characters from the War for Seibertron trilogy. Because it is purely just a more battle-damaged and free of Earth-based text version of the Earthrise toy. It's the exact same vehicle. Even the Sideswipe mold changed up some details between forms. This, I hate it. Probably my least favorite of the Netflix toys. Well, you know what? No, I can't say that, because some of them were just absolutely redundant and didn't represent any kind of new forms, just, grayer. So I don't hate them the most, but I'm the most disappointed with this as, an update or predate to, another form. Still really, really waiting, crossing my fingers for that, floating box van Wheeljack. We got the flying saucer Bumblebee, so it could happen, just saying. But this does also make me appreciate this toy all the more, because, if we're not going to get the slavishly G1 accurate, floating box version, it's still good to get some sort of Seibertronian looking vehicle, and this guy really fills that quota. Now, obviously, it's not the G1 character, but, you could repurpose him as such and just imagine he's part of that, Siege chapter of War for Seibertron if you want to. But I also want to use this comparison shot to highlight the similarities in design between this new Wheeljack and his more classic form. You see how, the heavy use of red and green striping all across the vehicle mode, the very dome-like cockpit. I think I've said that for the last 3 reviews, dome-like cockpit, but whatever. I like the aesthetic, okay? Don't judge me. They also, on a sour note, all use about the same level of off-white coloring, which I don't understand, because every time you look at the renders and all that, the Wheeljack toys are shown to be a bright white color, like Wheeljack should be, and then when you get the actual toys, they take on this dirtier color, they've been sitting in a house full of nicotine for years, and I don't get that. I don't get why bright white always translates to dingy, almost beige. They've proven they can do a bright white toy. We just got Ratchet in this wave, and he is bright white. So I don't get why they keep doing this with Wheeljack, because it always makes him look kind of dirty. And I don't want that. I want to look flashy and eye-catching. So that's maybe my one real complaint with this toy is just, again, this use of this really dingy-looking color for the white. I don't understand it. Right now it's time to transform our Wheeljack. So the first thing you want to do is remove the weapon, set it aside. You're going to push these little spoiler bits inward. You're going to separate the forearms that are tabbed together, and you're going to kind of have to carefully rotate them out and up and get them around this roof area. And they're going to collide a little bit. You'll just have to kind of work them out like this. Next thing you want to do is lift the cockpit area up, out of the way, move this armature with the head up. We can go ahead and fold this in now if we want to. Then we're going to fold the feet forward. So, get them to untab a little, untab them from each other, and be careful because it's all clear plastic. Then, you want to lift these panels up, start like a little slide, rotate them down. Same thing here, and just kind of rotate it out of the way, like so. We're going to untab these panels from the doors if they haven't already come undone. Fold this away. Gonna push these little shin bits in. And we're going to bring these all the way back around like so. They might try to pop out on you, so just make sure they stay in there as they rotate. They're kind of weird. Don't fit quite right. There you go. So again, like that. You straighten the legs back out. Untab the doors from the rear fender area, like so. And swing them all the way back, like this. Alright, so they should swing in to go into this little groove right here in the shin plate. And then you just kind of push the wheels back against them. Alright, that's the legs. Go ahead and rotate this around. Move this out of the way. You're going to bring the arms kind of down like this. And then rotate the panels. And again, you're gonna have some clearance issues with this, so just kind of have to work it and work around a little bit of collision you're having. All right, so you get all that. Bring the arms out to the sides, move them. You're gonna bring the chest up and tab it together with these tabs right here. There we go. There we go. Like that. Fold this little panel down, bring these kind of up, and you're going to bring this armature all the way up, bend it at this joint. His head, if it's still turned to the side, just turn it forward. And then you're going to push these shoulder panels up to where they lock in. Now, my copy, this one on this side really doesn't want to stay locked in all the way, and it's just kind of popping out. It's kind of annoying, but it's not the worst thing ever. It's not like completely breaking the look of the robot, just a little loose there. All right, so get them kind of posed up, and then lastly, you're gonna bring the arm wings up, because instead of back wings, this Wheeljack has the little wing bits on his arms. So a little different, but same overall look. All right, get them posed, try to keep the shoulders together if they'll stay together. And here you go. Here's our little Wheeljack. And I say little because he is quite small. Like, if you thought Ratchet and Brawn were short stuffs, this guy is really tiny. So I don't know what's going on with that, why they keep making these characters so tiny. I'm guessing that with the B-movie stuff, they're just kind of resetting the scale, you know, apart from what the Bayverse things, you know, look like. Which, I mean, I don't know. I feel like these toys are just getting smaller and smaller every year. So yeah, he's a little guy, but he does at least look pretty cool. He's got a really nice sleek design. Like, he's still recognizably Wheeljack, but he's got a lot more curves and angles. He's less boxy. And overall, he looks pretty cool. Now, when we look at his posability and engineering, the head is unsurprisingly on a ball joint, which is fine. That works. The shoulders, however, are also ball joints. So, just like Brawn, they did not decide to give us universal joints for the shoulders. He has a bicep swivel here, and then he has double bend elbows, which is pretty nice. No wrist swivel, sadly. This is all one piece. He's got a waist swivel, though his legs contact this tab here and prevent, the waist from turning all the way. But it turns enough to look natural. The hips are also ball joints. So, he is just really regressed from what we saw with Ratchet. At least Brawn had, universal hips. But yeah, he's got ball jointed hips, and they're fairly loose. You can see that. So already we got a bit of a problem here. He also has a thigh swivel here, where this dark gray piece rotates around the lighter gray. He has a knee bend that goes a little bit less than a 90. So okay, but not great. And then he has ankle tilt, but it's also really tight. And a lot of the time just kind of wants to pop back into a neutral position. Your mileage may vary with that bit, based on tolerance. So, he is sturdy enough to, stand up. He will stand just fine and mostly hold together, except for maybe these shoulder panels here, which are really annoying. But he's got a looseness to him, and as the first use of this mold, it's not a good sign. Now, are they ever going to reuse this mold? I don't know. I'm not sure what else they would turn it into. Studio Series doesn't necessarily seem to follow that whole, get as many uses out of a mold as we can, and that's mainly because the Bayverse and, even Bverse, as I've taken to calling it, characters don't often have two bots that look alike. They tend to have very radically different designs from each other. So, unless they just really went out in the weeds and did, a slicer recolor, though, he doesn't exist on screen, so I don't know if they would. But yeah, engineering, not great, as far as his limbs and all that are concerned. And the whole shoulder panel popping off thing is really frustrating. But he does look good. And look at his rifle here. Go ahead and attach it on the back using this little post. And you just put it on there like it's kind of slung across his back very naturally, which I think is a good look. Or you can have him wield it. So you're just placing his fist, and it's kind of a tight fit. I don't know why, it's just a little big for the fist hole, but it will go in there. I think it's the ridges on the handle that kind of catch. And he looks pretty good wielding it. It's a much bigger weapon than Wheeljack normally has. And he doesn't have the shoulder cannon thing, but again, this isn't strictly G1 Wheeljack, so it's not really a knock against the figure if he doesn't have that. I think he has enough of the cues to be more than sufficient as a live-action translation of that design. Here's Wheeljack's backdrop, and it's the same as the ones included for the other two Bumblebee Deluxes in this wave, which is, it's really tiring. I hate that they keep recycling these. I'm good with them using the same scene, but why not have the artist render a panorama and then use different segments of that for different characters instead of just the exact same thing, because it gets really old. But it's still a cool scene in of its own right. And if you go ahead and place Wheeljack in it, he does look kind of right at home here. Looks like he's part of the good fight that's being fought to save Seibertron. Now, honestly, he doesn't look quite as dynamic as the other two, and it's probably owed to just the way he's built and the somewhat limited articulation. But he looks halfway decent being posed in front of this thing, if that's what you want to do. Here's our robot mode comparison with the two War for Seibertron toys. And it's funny because the Earthrise Wheeljack mold is not a particularly big deluxe. He's maybe normal size, average size. So you can see just how short he is compared to these two, which really has me concerned that this is the direction that your Studio Series toys are going, where they're just going to get really, really tiny. And the problem with getting really small is eventually you have to get more simplified, because you can't make really tiny parts too intricate. It's difficult to engineer and manufacture, and it's prone to breakage. So I do kind of have this fleeting worry that we're going to start getting some more simplified designs. Now, that could just be meritless worrying on my part. This toy does take 30-something steps to transform, so he's no slouch there. But I don't know. There's something going on here, because I don't think any of these guys should be as short as they actually are. When your Generation 1 Wheeljack starts looking huge in comparison to your new one, something's off. Again, he doesn't have to be tall, it's a new continuity, but all three of these Deluxes we've reviewed so far have been very short. And it's just got me wondering what's going on with that. But those concerns aside, I will say that he does, just like in his vehicle mode, make for a very interesting stylized take on the classic design. All the major elements are there. He's got the windshield chest with the red stripes. He's got the Autobot symbol, though his has, green around it. He's got the wings, even though they've moved from his back to his arms. He's got the classic Wheeljack head, just, a bit more angular this time around. The only design cue he's really missing is the shoulder cannon. But to be fair, while these guys have a shoulder cannon, they have literally no other weapon, so I kind of prefer what he's got anyway. I mean, I still cannot forgive the designers for not giving Earthrise Wheeljack something besides that tiny little shoulder cannon to use. I mean, he seems relatively harmless compared to his Autobot teammates, and especially the Decepticons. Now, there are rumors out there of a third accessory pack that's supposedly coming with a red cog of some kind. I don't know if they mean like red cog from the Netflix cartoon or Grand Maximus's cog, or what it's going to be. And I don't know what kind of accessories are going to be in there. I've heard that it's apparently going to include arm blades for the Siege Jetfire toy to mimic the ones used in the cartoon. But beyond that, I have no idea. I don't know how many of the accessories are, weapon type accessories, or if some are going to be blast effects. But hopefully, just maybe, they'll have at least one, long rifle in there for old Jackie here. And for our final group shot, we have Wheeljack with his two teammates, Brawn and Ratchet, both from the same wave. And it looks like I called it wrong. He is slightly shorter than Brawn, so I will give him that. Though I don't know how much of a compliment that is, because Brawn's supposed to be really short, so I don't know. Ratchet, on the other hand, despite being rather small himself compared to other Ratchets, pretty much towers over both of them, so, scale is interesting right now. Maybe it's intentional, maybe they just said, hey, we got a new scale we're working with, Wheeljack's short now, I don't know. But I will say he does look good alongside his other figures because they all have this matching aesthetic. And the one nice thing I will say about his very dingy off-white color is it does at least help him stand out from Ratchet. If he was bright white like this, they would look, very samey on the shelf together. But I still would have preferred it because I don't like that shade of off-white they used. It looks like something that's either been out in the sun too long or has been in a heavy smoker's house for like the last 30 years. And that doesn't just extend to the white either. When you look at his gray colors used, it has like a browning quality. Even the red looks kind of dingy, so I think he could have really looked a lot better with some brighter colors. But for whatever reason, the people that designed him and colored him decided it'd be better if he looked like he came out of like an old weathered photograph or something, so okay, like that's the direction they wanted to go there. Also, interestingly, just like these two, his rifle is designed to look very similar, if not the same as, his teammates. Though, like his teammates, it's a completely different piece. It's a different size, it's got pegs and stuff in different areas, but the overall body of it does look pretty much the same. It does lack the little protrusions here on the end of the barrel, but other than that, it's pretty spot on. So I do find that to be a very, very interesting design choice there, where they're given weapons that are meant to look like they're the same, make and model, but they're just specially tailored to each figure to make sure they connect well, make sure they scale well with them. So that is an interesting move, and I wonder how much they'll carry that forward with, some of the other figures that might come out from this. And this completes our look at the new Studio Series Wheeljack. Unfortunately, I find myself liking this toy least out of the entire wave, and I think the biggest reason for that is he feels a lot more like a regular Studio Series Deluxe, like a Bayverse Deluxe, than the other toys do. Very complicated, very panely, and floppy. The ball-jointed legs and all that just flop around. The shoulders are nice and tight, but his shoulder panels, tend to pop off. He doesn't feel very good as a toy. He looks cool. As a static figure in both vehicle mode and robot mode, he looks great. Like, I actually thought I was going to like him a lot more than I do. But getting the figure in hand, he doesn't play good, he doesn't feel good. So outside of just posing him like a statue, I don't think people are going to get a lot of enjoyment out of this toy. Especially if he's got the QC issues like mine, with the loose hips, the shoulder panels. Really disappointing. And then when you factor in the fact that, like I said, he's very, very tiny, but still costs like $25, nothing about this purchase feels very good. Like, other than just for completion's sake of getting the B-movie cast, I don't really like him very much. I find him very wanting, honestly. And that's really a shame. I think using universals in place of ball joints would have helped a lot of that. And also just a little better QC when it comes to those panels there, because mine really don't want to stay together. Aesthetically, I think he looks really good, except for maybe the back of the legs, which are a bit, kibbly looking. And I think, most people will be somewhat satisfied with this toy, but I also think most people will not enjoy, fiddling with it and trying to put it in dynamic poses, because he's really not very good for that. Of course, that is just my take on Wheeljack, so now I want to know what you all think of him. Do you think I'm being too harsh on the toy? Do you think he's a lot better than I give him credit for? Or do you kind of agree that he's a bit lackluster and kind of disappointing? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at the new Studio Series number 81, Wheeljack. And with all that said, I will see you next time.